commercial, was trying to make a big budget, epic 60s James Bond satirical Kurt Vonnegut thriller. I would love to make that movie one day. The rights have lapsed, and Mr. Vonnegut has passed on, and one of the producers of the project, Hilly Elkins, has passed on. It's out there in the ether, and it's one of those things that maybe one day it'll resurface. But I wouldn't count on it anytime soon.
And I just kind of wanted to wrap this part up by just mentioning something else that I saw that you said once, which I love. This is one of my favorite terms for a movie. You said that some of your favorite films are WTF films.
Mm-hmm. That stands for what the fuck.
Yes. But you're very classy in this interview. You said WTF.
Yes.
And there's a book about directors talking about their favorite films, and I think you have an essay about Brazil, the Terry Gilliam film, as being like a major influence on you.
Yeah.
And maybe The Road Warrior. I mean, you have some other movies that are really sort of driving your viewpoint in film.
Yeah, I think that the WTF is like the best genre there is. You know, I say that, and I guess I would look to David Lynch as the premier, one of the premier directors of our time, one of my favorite directors of all time, an artist that I admire, you know, more than almost anyone. You know, his films are all, you know, incredibly mysterious and just so open to interpretation and enigmatic on so many levels. But for me, I'm the kind of person who comes back to those kinds of films just religiously. I just revisit them again and again and again. And you know, a film like Brazil, which is maybe less mysterious, but more complex and filled with so much detail and incredibly magnificent design and humor and humanity and just so filled with ideas. You know, it's like those are the films that I come back to the most. And to me, I see greatness in something that has just so much ambition that's just, you know, it can't even be digested in a single viewing. That turns a lot of other people off. It makes them angry, you know. A film like Blade Runner was a huge flop in 1982. You know, if like something like Rotten Tomatoes existed in 1982, it probably would have scored like a 12% fresh or something. Or Rotten, you know, it's like, it probably would have gotten like an F cinema score, you know, from audiences. But that's just the nature of these kinds of, you know, cult films. Like when The Big Lebowski came out, I guess it was, we were talking earlier, I saw The Big Lebowski on opening day. There was like 8 people in the theater. 2 of them walked out, and I think I was the only one laughing, but it was like, Fargo had just came out, and everyone was like, what is going on? What? They didn't understand, sometimes the wind is blowing in the wrong direction, or just things don't work out sometimes for, you know.
That's when WTF goes wrong, when people just don't get it.
Yeah, there's a big WTF, but I want to make that like, I know video stores are dying, but there should be a WTF section in the video store, right?
All your movies on that show.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have a couple questions I was going to pull from the box that people have asked.
Okay.
Of you. So one of them is, where did you film Donnie? Where's the high school in Donnie Darko?
The high school is Loyola Marymount in LA, in kind of downtownish Koreatown, LA. It's a very prestigious private school where, ironically, my agent went to high school there. He did. He did. A lot of, it's like a rich kid's school in kind of ghetto part of LA.
And we talked about this outside, but did you really flood the school? Like, how did that?
We could only afford to run the water over the janitor and the principal's feet. I, of course, was very ambitious. I wanted to flood the shit out of that school, and my line producer was like, get a life, you little brat.
So I had a lot of questions about the music, and I think you kind of addressed that because of rights issues. And there were a lot of questions about The Killing Moon being moved in the position, then having the NXS song replacing it in the film.
Well, it didn't replace it. The Killing Moon, The Killing Moon got moved originally in Sundance after he has sex for the first time, it's the Killing Moon, it's the big epic pop song of the movie, and INXS was always at the front. What happened at Sundance is because we had to lose the Pet Shop Boys, and we had to move Duran Duran to the Pet Shop Boys, we had to move Milky Way here, and we couldn't afford INXS, we had to drop it, so we had to just figure out how to move the Killing Moon. It was a whole big shuffling of the deck when they, they're putting your feet to the fire and saying, we can't afford this. And the Killing Moon happened to work wonderfully, beautifully at the beginning, but I always had an emotional attachment to it as he's coming down the stairs after having had sex for the first time, and it's like the Killing Moon, and he's having his final meltdown, and blah, blah, blah. So for the director's cut, we flip-flopped it back to the way it was at Sundance. And a lot of people really are very emotionally attached to the Killing Moon at the beginning, but then, for those of us who were there at Sundance at the beginning, we saw that INXS worked great as well. So that was just a flip-flop that happened to try to preserve both incarnations of how it works.
Speaking of the music, do you feel at all guilty that you are responsible for Mad World being a staple in American Idol now?
Well, Mad World was recorded in about 3 hours with Michael Andrews and his friend Gary Jules in his basement studio in the Hollywood Hills. It was a very last-minute decision that it was an idea Mike had. He brought Gary in, recorded the song, and I was like, holy shit, this is wonderful. This is like the end credits, or it's the final montage. And it became this phenomenon in the UK. It went to #1, the #1 Christmas single in the UK. I'm serious, and you go to the United Kingdom, and that's a big deal. Every Christmas there's a '1 song. It's like the Christmas song. It's like the Casey Kasem, emotional powerhouse song. And it sold 1 million copies in the UK. 2 years later, this wasn't until 2003, when the movie was well into home video even in the UK. And it became this sensation, and then it became a sensation kind of back in the US. It's like usually things start off in the UK first, and they arrive in the US. This kind of went to the UK and got cool, and came back to the US cooler. And it has continued to go on and on. And I don't watch American Idol, except occasionally, but I hear that Adam Lambert. I'm flattered by it, and I'm glad that it's resonated, and I apologize if it's become insufferable in any way, but it's this amazing Tears for Fears song, and I'm just glad to be associated with anything that's successful. I'll take credit for it. American Idol can throw me some residuals from that shit. I won't get it, but...
So here's the last question that's kind of an amalgam of a number of questions. A lot of people were asking about the casting in your films, because you have such amazing actors. Southland Tales is literally one of the craziest, most amazing casts I think has ever been assembled.
Yeah.
But a lot of people asked about your use of Patrick Swayze in Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
How did you come to Patrick Swayze?
Patrick Swayze, that's a great story. It was Nancy Juvonen, who's Drew Barrymore's producing partner, who's one of my favorite women in Hollywood. She was a big proponent of this movie, and along with my producing partner, Sean McKittrick, a big reason why it got made. It was her idea. They had read Patrick for Charlie's Angels, which they were